There is a military installation in the Nevada desert that is so heavily fortified, for decades, the United States government refused to even admit it was there. They wiped it from public maps, they ignored questions about it. But that absolute silence had an unintended consequence. It turned Area 51 into the most famous military base on Earth. The public obsession reached a boiling point in 2019. A simple internet joke suggesting people storm the base to uncover alien secrets went completely viral. Millions of people organized online, and a dedicated few actually traveled out to the remote desert gates demanding answers. In the absence of facts, the human imagination doesn't stay quiet. It rushes in to fill the silence with whatever it can dream up. And in the Nevada desert, that silence was absolute. By attempting to perfectly conceal their most advanced technology, the military accidentally drew the eyes of the entire world to a single patch of dirt. The origin of all this secrecy traces back to 1955. The Cold War was escalating, and the military desperately needed a location to test a new class of aircraft. They required somewhere perfectly flat, completely isolated, and far out of reach from Soviet spies. They found it at Groom Lake, a dry lake bed 80 miles northwest of Las Vegas. The first major project out there was the Lockheed U-2 spy plane. It was a strange-looking machine designed with massive glider-like wings so it could operate at altitudes no other aircraft could reach. Because the U-2 flew much higher than commercial flights, airline pilots would occasionally spot these bright silver flashes streaking above them in the stratosphere. With no frame of reference for an airplane operating at 60,000 feet, they started reporting UFOs. The military knew exactly what the pilots were seeing, but they couldn't hold a press conference to announce their classified spy plane, so they said nothing. That tactical silence essentially gave a government stamp of approval to the supernatural rumors. But the public's distrust didn't start with Groom Lake. It started in 1947, near Roswell. The military announced they had recovered a crashed flying disc, only to backtrack a day later and claim it was a weather balloon. It took decades for the true story to come out. The Roswell wreckage actually belonged to Project Mogul, a highly classified balloon network engineered to detect sound waves from Soviet nuclear tests. The government lied to protect a nuclear monitoring program, but that clumsy deception fractured public trust. Once people knew the military would invent cover stories, it became easier to assume the bodies from Roswell had been quietly shipped off to the bunkers of Area 51. As the Cold War dragged on, the projects at Groom Lake became even more radical. Engineers were throwing out the rulebook on traditional aerodynamics to gain a tactical edge. They tested the A-12 Oxcart, a plane shaped like a flattened dart that could fly at 3 times the speed of sound. If you caught a glimpse of this tearing through the desert sky, it was easy to conclude it wasn't from this planet. Then came the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. With its sharp, jagged angles and dark exterior, it looked like a flying diamond. Seeing it glide silently overhead at night completely baffled civilian observers. A strange pattern emerged. The more advanced the human engineering became, the more alien the results looked to an outside observer. Without a single official word to explain these jagged shapes and impossible speeds, the public filled the hangars with stories of underground laboratories and recovered saucers. The wall of silence finally cracked in 2013. Following a public records request, the CIA released a trove of documents that officially acknowledged the Area 51's existence for the very first time. The files laid out its history as a testing ground for classified aircraft. Those thousands of declassified pages contained countless details about experimental flight programs and Cold War logistics. They contained absolutely zero mentions of extraterrestrials. Today, the base is still active and heavily guarded. The airspace remains restricted, and the facility likely hosts the testing of next-generation defense tech and advanced drones that will remain secret for decades to come. Groom Lake remains a place defined by its contradictions. It is the birthplace of technology that redefined global surveillance, yet it is better known for a mythology it likely never hosted. As long as those gates stay locked, the shadow of what we imagine will remain far larger than the reality of the machines inside. If you enjoyed this dive into the shadows of Groom Lake, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our next story.